My name is Christine Curry, and I am the Iowa Outreach Coordinator of the Isaac Walton League's Upper Mississippi River Initiative, known as UMRI. Welcome to our 2022 series on soil and water conservation, Thinking Like a Watershed program. This is the last monthly presentation for this year. This program is jointly hosted with our Isaac Walton League colleagues of the Upper Mississippi River Initiative, and co-hosts include Panora Conservation Chapter member Chris Henning and Des Moines Chapter Communications Director Bud Hartley, who is live streaming this event at the Des Moines Chapter House. So welcome everybody from there. We thank you for joining us this evening for another extraordinary presentation, The Locally Grown Alternative Farm: How 7 generations of the Griffieon family work to provide local food security for their community while improving soil health and water quality. With our special guest this evening, LaVon Griffieon. She is the Farmstead Matriarch of the Griffieon family farm. Smack in the middle of the rural and urban landscapes that define Ankeny, Iowa, the Griffieon family farm exemplifies diversity and ingenuity as keys to sustainability. Theirs for 160 years and for so many aspects of the health of their community. They raise multiple species of livestock on pasture, including a herd of limousines, that's cattle. They raise crops, including corn that goes to a local distillery. And they have a restoration project on the farm. Area vegetable growers rent land on their farm, cover crops, portable hen houses, direct markets, and farmers markets, and soap all have their roles on the farm. But LaVon says, with urban growth pressure increasing upon our farm's boundaries, we hope more people begin to realize the importance of local food security in a community-based system. This evening, LaVon will discuss some of their niche markets because of all the urban growth, as well as address some of the practical barriers to growing food and soil without chemicals. And Ankeny happens to be the second largest city in the metro now. So a few of the TV stations locally have had some programming about that just the past couple of weeks. So that brings us to this evening's presentation. And I'd like to welcome LaVon, and Chris Henning is running the chat box right now. And if you have any questions, just please put them in the chat box and we will try to get to those at the end of LaVon's presentation. So thank you. And if you could all please mute, that'd be great. And LaVon, the screen should be ready for you. Thank you so much for taking time out on one of your summer evenings to come.
Oh, you're welcome.
Present with us.
Thank you for having us. This is the family. So it's my husband and I and our 4 children, their spouses, and 4 little granddaughters. The farm that we live on is just north of Ankeny. When I married my husband, we were 3 miles north of Ankeny, and didn't ever really think about what might be happening. Well, I am not doing well here. Well, go back there. My husband's great grandfather built this in 1902, and he moved a half a mile north from his childhood home. His parents immigrated here from Germany as children. And so you can see great grandpa's horse and buggy there. We had the house, the corn crib, and the barn, and the house was built in 1910. Oh, going the wrong way. We raise pasture raised chickens. So we have broilers, the white ones, and their total life cycle is about 8 weeks long. my son, in 1999, he was 13 years old and he decided he wanted a four-wheeler. And so I said, well, you want a four-wheeler, you figure out how to get one because I'm not going to buy you a four-wheeler. And he decided that he would start raising pastured chickens. He'd been to a PFI conference and seen a video by Joel Schultanis. And so he went into the chicken business. And he bought 100 chickens. He needed $500 for his four-wheeler. And so he sold his chickens for $5 and he lost $11.63 because he forgot to calculate in the food that he was buying. So he borrowed the neighbor's grinder mixer. I think he borrowed his dad's corn also and got a ration from the elevator and started raising or grinding his own feed. And we use non-GMO corn and soybeans at that time. And so he had a value-added product at that point. And he started charging $8 for his birds and ended up making some money on those. And so then we had to go to the farmer's market. And so what you're seeing here, and then we had to get some laying hens and we were selling eggs. And these are our two granddaughters chillaxing with the chickens while I'm in the garden. And they spend a lot of time out there. And then these are the little pullets are on the other side of the screen, all raised out on pasture. The laying hens have just a regular chicken house that they are in. The benefits of doing pasture-raised poultry is, from a lazy person's standpoint, you never have to scoop manure because it's all put onto the ground and you just move the pin every day. And you can see that this is all manure right here. And you can also see, as you back off of that, maybe, that the stripe right next to it is a lot greener. That's where they went down the thing and now they're turning and coming back. And this other one is where they haven't been yet. So let's see here. You can see that City of Ankeny is right up to our borders and it's on 3 sides of us. But we direct market all of our meat that we produce. So why is this doing this? All right. Do you have any instructions on how to get this back smaller? What have I done?
There should be a little magnifying glass maybe at the top of your screen and then a negative.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it, but maybe I have a mute stop visit participants.
Are you looking at a PowerPoint, LaVon?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, just do it like a regular PowerPoint. Because you're controlling your own screen. We're just
Right.
watching what you do.
Okay.
Yeah, you could just click on the arrow for the next slide.
I tried that.
Oh. Well, maybe you can, right?
Nick just came in. Yeah, right. Hey, Nick, come get me out of this. Well, I made it bigger and there, I got it. I hope. Okay, there we go. We also have cattle. We have a cow-calf herd and a feeder beef operation. The cows are out in 5 paddocks that we have for them. Our pasture is divided in 5 paddocks. And we have a nursery up on the corner by the buildings where the baby calves are born. And then when they get older, they get to go out to the pasture. 4 Mile Creek runs right through our property. And so when the calves get big enough, about 400 pounds, they come up to the feedlot. the reason we started doing the beef was because when we got married, we had 3 buyers that would buy our beef, and you could kind of pit them against each other. But as time went on, one buyer was buying for 3 different companies. And one week your cattle would be too thin, and the next week they'd be too heavy, and he would want to dock you for them. And so when my husband said to me, "You're making a lot of money on those chickens," I said, "Well, I could sell beef too, but I can't sell poison beef. So you need to knock off the antibiotics and knock off the hormones, and I will sell your beef." And so we did, and we haven't looked back. Nothing got sick. So we also raise a few pigs every year just in the back of the barn. And these things all started gradually as my kids had 4-H projects. They'd venture into a new bit of livestock every year. And so when we got a pig, then mom would be marketing pork. And so pretty soon we were in the, I can say the pig business, but we do about 15 a year. So, and then my daughter raises Katahdin sheep, and they are crossed with an African hair sheep. So they don't have land, they have no wool. They shed their hair every spring. So you don't have to worry about shearing them. They're very parasite resistant, and you don't have to dock their tails because it's the wool that the flies get up into and cause problems for the animals. So they all have long tails, and they're really good mothers. And because they don't have lanolin, the lamb doesn't have that aftertaste that you sometimes get from a lamb. And we also raise turkeys, and the chickens and the turkeys all come in the mail. We order them from Schleck Hatchery, which is a hatchery up in Miles, Iowa, a family-run hatchery. And we get about 60 to 70 a year. And we just butcher those right before Thanksgiving, and frozen, so it's not a fresh thing because we don't have enough processing plants in Iowa to get people a fresh turkey on Thanksgiving. You have to butcher ahead and then take it home with you. But we do market our beef, well, all of our meat through our farm shop, which has a little kitchen in it, and the Iowa Food Co-op, which is an online marketing that is bi-weekly. And I think they have like 15 satellite offices around the state. So you can order online and then your stuff is delivered, at least in central Iowa, for pretty good ways out. They have a great variety of stuff. And we also go to the Ankeny Farmers Market. And I started going there to get rid of Nick's chickens originally, but then as his older sister got to be like in college, Jerry DeWitt made sure that she got a grant to become the market master and set up the farmers market in Ankeny. And so we've been patrons of the farmers market ever since as vendors, and enjoy it. Our pasture along 4 Mile Creek was a marginal pasture over the years. The creek was actually straightened in 1960, which is totally illegal now, but it was going to cut under Highway 69. And so we have a nice oxbow area out in the pasture, but we had some stream bank erosion, and our trees were getting really old. In 2004, on the day Nick graduated and everybody was having their parties, we had a huge hailstorm with winds, and it blew 26 trees down in the pasture. And so we had already started by that time. We put in a stream crossing in 2 different spots so that the cows can go down into the water and they don't bother the stream bank because it's all rocked. And then we fenced off a riparian buffer and planted trees in it. We started in 2001 and planted 500 trees. The FFA in North Pole came and planted them for us, and paid $247.75 for those trees through the state nursery. So some of the benefits of the shaping the creek bed and is that it's all grass now, so it doesn't erode when we get our water events, which we get more and more frequently. And as Ankeny develops, there is a state law that says every developer can raise the stream bank 1 foot. Well, if they stagger their developments, that is no regulation at all. And so we get a lot of water backed up on us that didn't used to get backed up on us. You have to, about 3 times a year when it's real dry, we'll put the barbed wire fences down and let the cattle kind of mob graze that, just to get the woody unwanted trees out of it, knock the grass down a little bit. But it's great habitat, and it's doing its job as far as protecting water quality. And another thing that we used USDA funds for was in 2008, I applied for an energy efficiency grant for a walk-in freezer, and discovered that walk-in freezers are not efficient at all. I got the grant, and then I went to buy the freezer, and it was going to cost more than I make every month selling my meat. So instead I got 3 Energy Star freezers. They're Tralson freezers. And we've been swimming along with those ever since. So 1 freezer is for beef, lamb and pork share a freezer, and then 1 for chickens. And when we get the turkeys in the year, it's kind of in October, it's kind of a balancing act, because stacking 70 turkeys is like stacking footballs. And people that show up always want the one in the very far back on the bottom, always. So we had a erosion problem. Every rain event we had was washing out our road. It was just putting a crevice, it wasn't a rill, it was a gully right through the road so that cars couldn't cross over it. And so we got the neighbor to do a grassed waterway, and then we continued it. And you can see here, it's still silting in by the tire there. That's kind of wet, but it goes down here, curves around again. This is Highway 69 down here. And so it goes across the road, and then it ends up in 4 Mile Creek. Everything in our watershed ends up eventually in 4 Mile Creek. Not a good thing. We've also tried cover crops, and we have mixed emotions about cover crops. This one was put on soybean stubble, and it was rye. You have to kill the rye with Roundup. You can't, and this year it was damp enough that when we planted into it, we couldn't plant into it. So we got a straight line ripper and had to rip the roots, and we waited 3 days, and we went back and tried again, and still was too wet. The planter was sinking, and so we had to field cultivate it twice before we could get that. But on the other hand, the rye has a deep root system, and it's putting carbon into the soil. So it's holding the soil in place. It's doing what it's supposed to do. But the bad part was they put it on in the fall, and a lot of bugs came there to lay their eggs. And as Nick took, after the corn had been in there a few days, he went out to look, and by every corn kernel, there's a grub from a insect. And so, which would probably mean that you would have to use insecticide if you're going to keep your yield as high as you would in a normal with no cover crop. We've also used turnips and radishes. Well, my exciting story about the radishes is that we were all standing out in the yard busy one day, and fire engine truck number 2 comes wheeling in on 2 wheels, and he says, "Do you have gas tanks?" And we're like, "Well, yeah." He goes, "LP gas?" "Well, yeah, we have them by our dryer bin, and there's one here and one here." And he goes, "Well, we have a gas link. We've already called Black Hills. They're on their way." And my son started laughing, and he goes, "It's not a gas leak, it's our turnips." And we'd had a light freeze, and the turnip had died, and it was putting off a methane gas that the people in the houses across the road thought was a gas leak. And so he would not believe us. The guy driving the fire truck was not buying the story at all. And so we took him out there, and he grabbed the turnip and stuck it up in his nose and got it on his nose. And you can only imagine how bad that smelled. And then he was a believer. So that was one of the side benefits of that cover crop, is we thought it might curb urban sprawl. But we've used lots of cover crops over the years. We've had sweet clover, and we use them not religiously on all of our acres, but we don't have any highly erodible land. It's mostly pretty flat. I'm not saying that we still shouldn't be protecting our soil, but there's other places in Iowa that do have a problem every time it rains. Another thing that we used USDA funds for was to put a windbreak up around our daughter's house, and it was a 3-tiered windbreak. So these over here are shrubs, and we had hazelnuts, cranberry for eating in the wintertime for wildlife, and then some lilac, and something that has red stems. And so then the next row was pine trees, and then the row a little farther over from that is our oak trees. And so she grazes with electric netting so that the sheep aren't nibbling the trees, but they do a good little job around here with the grass that grows in between the trees. One of our biggest problems, as you see, is the growth of ankeny. This particular one, it's a half a mile. When Grandpa homesteaded the farm, this was actually Highway 69, and it curved. Highway 69 didn't come right out of Ankeny, and it curved a mile south of us because this was such a wetland. It was a slough, and they couldn't get rid of it. And then the CCC came and tiled that, and Highway 69 was brought north out of Ankeny. And so we're a half mile off of Highway 69, which is unusual for the Iowa 1-mile grid system. But anyway, these people that live to the south of us, our neighbors, this is our fence line, cut our half-mile fence because he wanted the landscape and he didn't like the weediness in our fence. And it's just unbelievable that somebody thinks that's okay to do that. What you will see here, we have rented for about 20 years some gardens to refugees from Vietnam. They were originally from Thailand. They're Hmong farmers who we kind of left in the mountains when we vacated during the war. And so they have been here. There's 5 families. And it's been a great cultural experience. It's kind of fun. If we get seed corn people out here, agronomists, they look over the fence and are like, what the heck is that? Because they bring a lot of vegetables in from Thailand. The latest little prank that got pulled on us was that the neighbors sold 5 acres, just absolutely a mirror image of the frontage of our home for a Mid-America substation. And I've been pretty outspoken about urban sprawl over the years. And so this was all a ploy, basically, so that I'd either move or I'd have to give them what they want in order to get it moved. What they wanted was somebody else has bought this entire section, the farmland in it. And so they wanted to trade for 78 acres that they needed for sewer. Well, when you're talking a public utility, there's not much use of fighting it because you're going to end up in condemnation court and you're never going to win. And what we also learned, that we had heard that this substation was coming. And I said to Craig, what do you want me to do? And he said, oh, just let it ride. He said, we're going to have public meetings about it. We'll get to discuss it. Well, Polk County supervisors, in their infinite wisdom, passed an ordinance that doesn't have to notify adjoining landowners if it's a public utility. So we're not talking a little cable going across underground wrecking my lawn. We're talking a huge substation. And we have managed to get it moved from here to this side of the fence. But originally it was only going to be, there's my bedroom right there. It was only going to be 204 feet from our bedroom. So we will have those big rusty poles going up and down the road, I'm sure. And we'll have a constant hum, and I guess we'll learn to live with it or not. This is how it got introduced to us. This guy came wheeling in the yard with his pickup and he goes, where do you want your sign? And we're like, what sign? And that's how they announced that Mid-America Energy Electric Substation was going across the road from us. And that's our house. That's the window we'll be admiring it from. And we have really grade A soils in this land. In Iowa, they have a corn suitability rating that goes from 0 to 100, and our land is between 90 and 98%. It has a 90-98 rating for a corn suitability rating. So it's very, very fertile land. We're very fortunate. And the land around us that all those subdivisions are sitting on was equally the same. And we have no laws in Iowa that protect that kind of land. People come from around the world and they look and they can't believe that we're building sprawl development on this land. So, some people honestly believe farming's something to be done with the land until you can find a higher or better use for it. But I think that it's not our land. It's on loan to us from our grandchildren. And we're just the keepers of the flame. And so, we could all be doing a better job. And I think that's it. That is it.
Wow. And then, yeah, you'll just stop sharing your screen.
Pause share.
Yeah.
Okay. I was talking to Christine before we got started about something that really, as a kid, we had these little books from the ASC office, one in sixth grade and one in eighth grade. And it just taught us all kinds of things. I can't believe that, well, we have how the water works. Let's see.
LaVon, you're still sharing your screen. Can you
How do I stop doing that?
up,
Stop
down?
share. Got it.
Yeah, there you
Got
go.
it.
Perfect.
All right.
perfect.
Okay.
Now we can see you.
All right. So we have this little Iowa book that the older I get, the more I appreciate, because it's actually Ding Darling is on the front. And what sixth grader knows about Ding Darling, right? So it's just asks all kinds of conservation questions about erosion. And I'm amazed that I was so brilliant in sixth grade that I knew some of the things that were in here, such as the water cycle. And we had to draw out the water cycle. And when I talk to kids in this day and age, I have one where I drew out all the landforms in Iowa, the 5 different regions, and college students don't know what I'm talking about. When I talk about that, I have a nice little laminated thing to show them, and they're totally bewildered, but can't find it now. So anyway, I don't know how people can grow up and make decisions like where to locate CAFOs if they don't know about karst landforms and how the limestone is, and that stuff can get right into the water. So I think we're adults aren't doing children any favors these days, and education is part of it, and a practical education that they can use throughout their lives.
That's fantastic, LaVon. I think it's really interesting. I know you and your family were the recipients of the Isaac Walton League's State Conservation Award, and I heard you present there just about a month ago. And I was interested in, learning about the cover crops and how, your problems with that. And it's interesting because that is a concern, is like, the fact that you're doing all this great conservation to hold the soil in, but at the same time, we've got to use chemicals to flush them out. It just seems like, oh my gosh, there's got to be a better way to do that. But I appreciate and we're so grateful to have a farm like yours as a living example for our state of what can be and what was and what could be and what is.
Well, the Indians planned ahead for 7 generations, and that's exactly what my kids are, or my grandchildren are, the 7th generation. And when you see the growth, I don't know how we'll hang on, but we have every intention of doing that. So,
do we have any questions? Any discussions or any questions? Do you have any concern for the open range chickens with the bird flu?
Not much, because the derecho knocked all our trees down. So it's not like I used to have our chickens underneath trees because then the chicken hawks can't dive at them. But all of the trees are gone out of their little chicken yard now. So it would be rather difficult, and it wouldn't be difficult, but I can't keep them cooped up. I take the chance. My daughter had hers cooped up for about 3 months, and I think she's finally given up on that too. So
yeah, there was another
Question.
Oh, go
We
ahead,
have a
Chris.
couple of questions here about hosting school groups. And LaVon, you might tell them about some of the groups that you have hosted, because I know you do school and you do the NRCS people and all sorts, and you've got something big coming this weekend, don't you?
yeah,
the
we
10th.
do. We do. If you want to come for a farm tour, we're doing an energy efficiency tour. We also have solar panels. We have 120 solar panels on the roof of our shop. And so we're going to be talking about solar, and someone from Iowa Environmental Council will be here. A gentleman from CB Solar that installed our array will be here. And we've had that, oh my, I'm gonna say probably 6 years now. It saves us about $6,000 a year. It'll be 20 years until we get it paid off. It was pricey to put it in, and the things that we learned when we put that in was that it's not free electricity. That's not the way you're supposed to look at it. You're supposed to try to conserve as much as you can and supplement yourself with that. And being on a farm of this size, we are energy hogs. And so that was a good, the kids were all still home then, and it was a good opportunity for them to go through getting the solar array and having to listen to someone else preach about electricity and shutting off the lights besides me.
So Mike Carberry is asking, and I'm interested too. What you said Saturday, this tour? What time?
Let me get my little card here so I don't lie to anyone. Rural Energy Field Day at the Griffieon Family Farm, Friday, June 10th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. There is a catered lunch from Hy-Vee, and it's the Iowa Interfaith Power and Light and the Center for Rural Affairs putting it on. And our address is 11655 Northeast 6th Street, Ankeny.
And I can forward your information that you sent to me for the Center of Rules Affair that's putting it on. It's on June 10th. It won't let me cut and paste. I was trying to do that, but for some reason Zoom won't let me do that.
Oh, Christine, you're going to do that to everybody who's on the call, right?
Yeah, I will send it out with the email with you.
That's wonderful. So I don't remember the solar panels, but have you considered a wind turbine?
We were considering a wind turbine, and then it came to our attention that there are so many moving parts in a wind turbine that you get to know your repairman really, really well. And the only thing that you really have to worry about are high winds and hail. And we've had both, and we have never had a problem with it. So it's been an interesting endeavor. Right. And someone asked about schools. I quit counting. I used to do an Ag in the Classroom program in Ankeny, and I started out with 400 kids, and I expanded to Story County, and I was doing 13 schools of 4th graders. And then most of them would come to the farm, some for a spring trip and a fall trip. Of course, then budgets got cut and they could only afford one trip. And then the Ankeny school system got so upset with me because I had so many opinions about sprawl that they ceased doing it. But I quit counting when I got to 26,000 kids that we'd given tours to, and that was years ago. And we still give tours if people ask. So it's better to come in the spring, because in the winter, since everything's outside, we don't have any. We have the layer chickens, but no broilers or pullets out on grass. And the pigs are all gone by the end of October. The turkeys are gone by the end of October. So there's not a lot to see if you come in the fall, unless you want to look at crops getting harvested or something.
I don't think the register link is working when I put it in the chat box, but I will, like I said, I can send that out and forward it to anybody.
Oh, Mary Ellen Miller is asking how many total acres. My son's just rented 350 acres, which is the 350 acres that the guy across the road is going to be developing. So that will annually decrease and decrease. It's really hard to get young people farming because everybody around us is losing acres, there's nothing available. But we, as our family owns about 1,000 acres. So we farm about 11, or, I would say about 1,300 now.
And one fun fact about your farm is, well, our president of the Des Moines Isaac Walton League, Doug Pooch, he's a Wiffles sales guy. And I don't know if he's still in the audience or not, but he is. Great, Doug. This is a little plug for Wiffles, which we always try to do. But the Griffieon family has, some really great plots of Wiffles corn. And one of them actually goes to a distillery, and Doug has worked with them to refine exactly this beautiful hybrid corn that it has been hand selected to go to this distillery. And I guess it's just amazing whiskey, if you like whiskey.
We have, bourbon. Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah, we do quite a bit. My sons are seed dealers for Wiffles, and we like Wiffles because you can get the genetically modified, but you can also get non-GMO, and non-GMOs perform really well in all of our test pots. In fact, they've kind of aced out the other ones most of the time. And so we also grind our own feed for our livestock, and that's turned into a little extra sideline. But we grind chicken feed for people who have little flocks, and while we're grinding, then we have to clean all the machinery out and make the Cummings Distillery, the Iowa Distilling Company, a little bit of grain too. So
That's great. We had one more question, LaVon. Mary Ellen Miller was wondering about easements. Could you put in a permanent easement on your farmland so that that this development could be secured, just kind of like the Garsh family's done? They put in, conservation easements.
Cost. It costs to do that. We don't have, Iowa doesn't, the Iowa Natural Heritage has programs to save wild areas and natural areas, but because Iowa has so much farmland, they don't know how they could choose. And some states like Colorado, with their wonderful soil, they have programs that actually save. The state provides funding to do that, and if you sign your easement over, so we're really not in a position to do that, because it's kind of like a dynasty. It's 7 generations of wealth that's accumulated, and how do you make that decision that you're gonna do that? So, and we've looked into programs, but not found anything that really suits our needs.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge scale.
Yeah.
I wondered if we could just put like a a little easement around the edge so they couldn't jump. And nobody bought on that one. Nobody bit. So, but yeah, it's developers have a lot of money and they have a lot of clout, and when it comes to legislation and things that seem so common sense
Mhm.
are so hard to do.
Yeah.
We got smart growth language put into the Iowa code about probably it's probably been about 10 years now, and it was just a knockdown drag out to get it done, and a little bit of chicanery and trickery got it done. So and it really does nothing. It's one of those laws that will gum you, but it's never going to bite you.
Another, actually, a friend of mine who is on here this evening, her name is Ann Starboard, and she has a family farm that she grew up on in Pennsylvania, and they're in the same boat. Literally, they have like this urban development is, surrounded their whole farm, their whole family farm, which used to be a dairy farm. And so her brother and a couple of the other siblings have a farm stand sale, and they do all kinds of special little niche markets. And Annie actually had her own goat dairy. And anyway, she has a question in here that she just sent to me and wanted to know, is there an income stream on your farm that significantly outshines the others? Does being on the fringes of urban help this? So I think that's what she's, just like we kind of said, is it's like, yeah, you kind of have a special niche market because all these urban people now want to, oh, I bought my meat from the Griffieon family farm, and this is pasture raised poultry and or grass fed beef. What a concept.
Yeah,
Right?
our beef isn't grass fed; it is corn fed.
Okay.
But it's non-GMO and antibiotic free, no hormones. The meat business, we've never advertised. It's all word of mouth, and we're pretty relaxed. You come in and get your own eggs, and you put your money on the table in the shop and walk out with your eggs. And if you need them, the meat's all marked, and so there's an adding machine there. You can add it up. If you need help, call me. In the wintertime, I'll have to bundle up 3 kids to get outside to help you. So it's going to take a little bit. But there's usually somebody in the shop, but it's kind of a word of mouth thing. And I mostly wanted people to know that we were here to we could raise food in Iowa, and we didn't just have to raise commodity crops, which are, Iowa. We like to tell everybody we're the food capital of the world, but indeed we are the feed capital of the world, and we're trying to be the fuel capital of the world. And 80% of our food comes here from out of state. And we found out how big of a supply we had in our warehouse during COVID. I bet I have 5,000 pounds of meat out in our, between all the different species. And when I walked into Fairway and saw those stainless steel meat shelves, that was frightening to me, that there was no meat to be had. And that day, within 3 days of that happening, I sold 13 cows. And then I spent the next 1.5 years trying to get those cows into the locker, because we don't have enough infrastructure in Iowa left to get done what we needed to get done. And I was telling you earlier, we butchered 100 chickens yesterday. In order to sell them, I have to have them done at a state inspected locker. And there's only one in Iowa, and it's in Green up by Sheffield. So we have to travel quite a ways with chicken carcasses that we keep stopping at Casey's and dumping more ice on. And so our things that are supposed to make us safe don't always make us safe.
That's a little bit sad. Mary Ellen said it's thanks so much for the great update, LaVon. Great to see you and learn about your children. that are following your footsteps. She worries too about the amount of money that developers will offer them. And you just answered where your animals are processed. So that was one of her questions.
Yeah.
And so that's, yeah, I think a lot of people are aware, but still, it's great that you're in a position where you can actually educate the second largest suburb now of our state. And actually, your farm is really basically a learning farm. and
Yeah.
and we just need to help market that with you and for and spread the word, because I've shared it with some of my friends who live in Ankeny. And how cool is that, just that they can learn a little bit and bring their children there to learn.
Yeah, it's I do an apple demonstration where I cut an apple into 3/4 of the world. If the apple is the world and 3/4 of it is water, we get rid of the oceans because we don't eat a lot of kelp, and we keep the fourth, and then you divide that fourth in half, so you have an eighth, and a third of that is infrastructure, roads, highways that we've put on the earth. A fourth of it is cities, and a fourth of it is like soils that aren't good, that are too rocky, too wet to grow food. And so when you end up with 1/32 of that entire apple that is arable farmland that we can use. And then we do what we do to it and
Yeah.
don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
Run it into the ground. Don't treat your soil like dirt. Dirt's what's on your mother's kitchen floor. Soil is a living organism.
Yeah.
And it needs to be fed.
It's very sad. I had just learned from another Zoom that about approximately 17 pounds of soil is lost for every pound of ethanol that's produced. And that makes me really sad.
Well, and water too.
Yeah.
It's a huge use of water. So.
Right. Yeah. Do we have any other questions? My and says out here, forget the politicians, get farmers to join together and build a local processing plant. Use your local eating community to support you. That's an idea. Maybe we could have a GoFundMe from the Ankeny community to do a local locker right there.
Yeah, that would be wonderful, because that's why they don't have any local chicken lockers, is that they want them to hook into sewer, and they're always out in the country. And so it's expensive for well, there's a guy in Lehigh that would gladly do it, but Lehigh doesn't have a sewer system.
Yeah.
And so our laws actually aid and abet this stuff. And yeah, so.
And Mike Carberry says 8 gallons of water per gallon of ethanol. So there you go. We've got 8 gallons of water and 17 pounds of soil for 1 gallon of ethanol. Anyway, that's some of the facts that are good to know. Well, does anybody else have any questions this evening? We had a small group. We always, this time of the year when it gets lighter out and summer is here and the masks are coming off, so we've got that. So we have thanks for the great program. My aunt and uncle had to shut down a grade A dairy south of Dallas, Texas due to the urban sprawl too.
Huh.
Thank you for joining us, TM. So thank you so much. I think we're good. Yeah, and I hope everybody voted today. It's our primaries here in Iowa. That's what Mike Carberry just said that. All right, LaVon, thank you so much for taking time to join us this evening. Thank you for sharing your story, and everybody, thank you so much for taking time to join us. Please let me know if you need any additional information, and I'll get the link out to you about this. I'll send that out just via email.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Have a beautiful week and enjoy the rest of your evening.